Hello and welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So, that's not entirely 100% accurate this time around, as this episode is actually a collaboration with another YouTube movie and TV series reviewer, AnkitaSays. And we will be discussing the 2006 science fiction action-cum-thriller movie, Déjà Vu, starring Denzel Washington, as directed by Tony Scott. So, we have been working on this collaboration for quite some time, and this is actually one of two episodes that we have done together. One for each of our channels, and both have actually been released together, so you should see both of those episodes live now. The premise was fairly simple. It's our first go at doing a collaboration. Well, mine definitely, and this was basically the premise was to choose a sci-fi film, being a genre that we both enjoy, that the other hadn't seen, but that the main reviewer had, if you kind of get me. So, Ankita chose Déjà Vu, having never seen that movie before, and of course that I had. The other movie was 2016's Arrival, the episode for which you can catch on Ankita's channel, and was the movie chosen as that I hadn't seen before. So, please do certainly catch that review if you can, and check out Ankita's channel in the process. I will be posting an intro to that review on my channel, so you will be able to catch the link in there if you're absolutely interested in watching it. Please do. As I said, it is our first collaboration, and indeed my first collaboration ever. So, we opted for a fairly simple format for this review of Déjà Vu. For this one, I will start, give my short synopsis, as I usually do, along with my thoughts and the review of the movie. And then I will introduce Ankita, who will then present her review for you all. It has certainly been quite an interesting process in kind of putting all this together. And I do hope it's something that you enjoy, and something I certainly wouldn't mind doing more of in the future. Not at all. So, yes, Déjà Vu. The film starts with a fairly gut-wrenching and harrowing kind of terrorist attack aboard a ferry travelling across the Mississippi River in New Orleans, killing hundreds of people on board. We are then introduced to Denzel Washington's character, Douglas Carlin, an ATF agent with a very keen eye who pays absolute astute attention to the very fine details. Doug, he actually starts to follow his own sideline case, which, although appears unrelated to the attack, may in fact just kind of hold the key to actually being solved. He is then invited to join a newly formed investigative team headed by FBI agent, and I can't say this name, Paul, I can, but Pyrazarara? Oh dear. Pyrazarara? Oh. Anyway, played by Val Kilmer, who basically this team has some pretty advanced pieces of tech at their disposal. Together, they work to try and unravel the events that led up to the terrorist attack, and bring those responsible to justice. Now, I want to be careful not to kind of give too much more away here. As certainly, you know, some of the enjoyment of this film, especially on a first watch, is kind of trying to piece all of the parts of the puzzle together yourself. And then, of course, starting to see all of them kind of form on the screen, which is a very big part of this movie. And so I think that's all I'm going to give in terms of a plot and in my segment at the very least. To some extent, a clue is in the film's title, but I'm going to leave it at that. So for me, this film is extremely intriguing, very suspenseful, and most certainly quite emotional at times. From the get-go, it centres around the terrorist explosion and involves you in the investigation in a real kind of intimate way. Denzel Washington provides a great performance, as of course he usually does, presenting the character of Doug as somebody with a real keen eye for detail, somebody who's calculating, very astute, yet basically somewhat amusing, in a fairly powerful performance that does play to Denzel's on-screen charismatic charm and presence. The film is kind of somewhat unique, I thought, for a sci-fi movie, in that it concentrates solely on the crime and its investigation in the very first instance. Kind of investing us into the case and the characters before introducing the sci-fi elements, which are somewhat secondary to the main overall plot. They kind of facilitate the investigation and the last act of the movie, most definitely, but they're almost drip fed to us in the first instance, so kind of not to shift the focus away from the investigation of the crime, which it is itself the most important aspect of the movie. I did enjoy the way that they introduced the tech in the movie, with Denzel's character pretty much expressing our frustration when a heap of techie jargon is kind of thrown at us. I love it, as this film doesn't make you feel stupid for not understanding the science. I mean, if a character like Doug, so clearly switched on and very knowledgeable, cannot make head nor tail of it, then we must be okay, right? Denzel definitely feels our pain here, almost like he could sense the frustration we would have. And yes, thankfully, for Denzel's sake and ours, it is eventually explained in simpler terms. I also like the fact that they were careful to have Denzel's character continuing using some good old-fashioned detective work, even when the technology is introduced. But admittedly, this kind of does tail off somewhat as the use of the technology increases. It is one of those films where nothing is ever shown to you by accident. Quite a lot of the scenes that we see have significance later on in the film. And I did find it interesting how the elements were kind of interwoven upon themselves within the film, with quite an intricate kind of detail. It also had some excellent cinematography with some great shots of the Mississippi River, but I must say there were a couple of moments, especially as the explosions start to happen at the start of the movie, where the editing was a bit cumbersome and in fact cheapened the overall effect for me. Not enough to spoil my enjoyment, but noticeable nonetheless. You'd have the explosion and all of a sudden just this guy shouting coming out the ferry. Have the explosion again. You'd have the same guy jumping off the boat. It just made no sense. But anyway, one thing in particular that I thought happened as the film moved forward was the progression of the technology. In order to add more sci-fi into the film and to add further elements to the plot, the availability of the tech kind of becomes convenient. Kind of moving very quickly from simply being theoretical in some cases to full-on applicable to the moment or feeling being portrayed on the screen. In this respect, the film kind of lost its consistency a little bit for me. I know that it had to go in that direction as the filmmakers wanted to build up these later points for the film in time as it went on, but it had been kind of level-footed up to that point and fairly grounded, even for the most part, as the tech was actually being introduced. It kind of did feel quite natural and less futuristic than it actually was, and I thought that fitted the investigative tone of the movie very well, which was lost, like I said, as the more intense kind of sci-fi elements were added into the movie. But that's only really a minor gripe overall, and the film does work very well and creates quite a lot of suspense and intrigue throughout. I would also say that the music really adds to this very well, with music composed by Harry Gregson Williams. It had kind of like a Bourne-like quality, although Williams did not compose the music for any of those films in that series, as far as I'm aware. That really, it does have you on the edge of your seat and placing you really at the right in the heart of the movie. Overall, I wouldn't say it's quite an action film, and not 100% a science fiction movie. Well, not at least to start with. More investigative, with some action and certainly lots of suspense. For a sci-fi film, it concentrates more on setting up the main characters, especially Denzel's, so that we as a viewer could invest in them more, making what follows ever the more prominent and heartfelt. I wouldn't say that it isn't without a few plot holes, as you always get with a film of this type. You will see what I mean if or when you watch the film. I just can't discuss them here if I want to keep it kind of spoiler free. But overall, it is extremely enjoyable and very riveting stuff. So that's my thoughts on and kind of feelings on Déjà Vu, as I would normally give them. So I would now like to introduce AnkitaSays as part of our collaboration to offer her take on this movie. So yes, take it away, Ankita.
Wow, that was a good sci-fi movie. Hey, I am AnkitaSays, and today I am reviewing Déjà Vu. It was the list of movies Lee gave it to me, and I managed to watch this. It was really good. Let's get into the review. Now, if you are a sci-fi nerd, you will love this movie, and it is very interesting. It deals with the same concept of changing the past for a better future. Now, after watching mind-boggling 3 seasons of Dark, I think this movie was very much simplified in story to understand that the past can actually change the future. The scene of Doug and the terrorist in the 2 different timelines is so interesting to watch. Like, it's just happening side by side, and I can't believe it that the writers wrote that. The story starts with the terrorist attack, and Doug Carlin starts investigating it and tries to find out who is behind it. What if you could look into the past? Well, that is the major story of this movie. The movie starts with this concept and ultimately brings a time loop in it. The scientific mumbo jumbo, I don't understand. I don't want to get into it, but such have a pattern to get through, and by now I pretty much understand it. The movie is an authentic US 2000s film with amazing background score and casting. I love to watch these movies because I have never ever heard of it. So these underrated gems are a must watch, and if you haven't watched this, you need to definitely give it a try. The movie is directed by Tony Scott. There isn't a moment in the film where you lose interest. It just keeps you on the edge of your soul. Thanks much to Lee aka SciFirst MovieTalk for collaborating me. It has been a great experience. I hope you like this review, and make sure to check out his review on my channel on the movie called Arrival.
Thank you very much, Ankita, for that excellent review. I am so glad that you enjoyed the movie. It is a very decent entry into the sci-fi genre, and yet another good movie from Denzel Washington, of course. I would also like to thank everybody for watching our reviews. And of course, if you haven't already, please do check out our reviews of Arrival over on AnkitaSays. I'm going to leave a link below for that review on AnkitaSays if you are interested. I certainly recommend you do check it out. I will also ensure that a link to the review is also posted at the end of this video. You know, in like the linked videos, recommended ones at the end. So that will always be there, linking you directly to that review. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching. And I do hope you check out Ankita's channel itself, where you will find other brilliant reviews of movies and TV shows. Absolutely. I hope that you have enjoyed this collaboration as much as we have enjoyed putting it together. It's certainly been an interesting experience, being the first time. And yes, one I would be very keen to repeat in the future. But otherwise, yes, that brings me to the end of this episode. Thank you very much for watching. If you've liked it, I do hope you have, please leave a like down below. Please consider subscribing to SciFirst MovieTalk, of course. Also, AnkitaSays. But otherwise, yes, thank you very much for watching. Do hope to see you again at SciFirst MovieTalk. Thank you and goodbye.